California and the United States. As Governor, will you take a close look at NAFTA to review its impact on jobs in our state?
So my personal view is we have got to be, as the United States of America and as Californians, we have to be free traders. It is not in the best interest of California or the United States to erect barriers. We have to be able to compete worldwide. In fact, I don't know how many of you know, but a big chunk of California's GDP, I'm not precisely sure of the number, but I think it's about 25% of our GDP is actually export-import. And we are uniquely positioned on the Pacific Rim. So, I think in return, of course, we have to expect a level playing field. eBay was founded on a level playing field. We have to have a level playing field. We have to insist upon that in our trade relations. But net-net, I would say NAFTA has been a benefit to the United States of America and to California.
It's very interesting. Do you think that a lot of people are knowledgeable enough and have the data in which to make a determination about NAFTA?
I think voters are very smart, and I think people do understand that if we are competing internationally on a level playing field, then it is the right thing for us to open our borders so we can sell more products overseas, to source products into the United States. So I actually think that it's a complicated subject, but I have been deeply impressed that voters throughout California have actually quite detailed understandings of many different aspects of economics, of how things work. So I think there's a pretty good understanding of this. I do.
Thank you. Several questions, quite a few questions, have been submitted about the type of jobs that should be created in California. We are, as a nation, known as a service economy, and we're certainly going that way more and more. But how about sustainable jobs in industries like manufacturing, a lot of industries that we've lost overseas?
Yeah. So I think we need to defend manufacturing in California. Everyone thinks we have lost all the manufacturing jobs here. In fact, it's not true. We have either the #1 or #2 single largest number of manufacturing jobs in the country. And we cannot afford to lose another one. So let's be smart about how we treat manufacturers. Let's be smart. Remember I talked about this targeted tax relief. I think this notion of eliminating the factory tax, as I said, that sales tax that manufacturers pay on capital equipment to manufacture, is enormously helpful to manufacturers. And it's not just heavy equipment manufacturers. It's manufacturers who make everything from handbags to apparel to high-tech to biotech. This is a very important thing, and we cannot afford to lose more manufacturing jobs out of this state. And I don't think it is a foregone conclusion. If we focus on it, and the next governor of California is deeply focused on how do we create a better business climate for all businesses in California, we will bring along manufacturers.
We have a few more questions before we switch gears to another topic on jobs. But first, I'd like to remind you that you are listening to the Commonwealth Club of California radio program, and our guest today is Meg Whitman, Republican candidate for governor of the state of California. Here's a question about a payroll tax break. Actually, it came from no one in California, but Senators Chuck Schumer and Orrin Hatch. And they are recommending a payroll tax break to employers that hire workers who have been unemployed for at least 60 days. This tax break would mean that an employer would not have to pay 6.2% Social Security payroll tax on a new hire. Do you think that's a good plan?
So here's the issue. We have got to figure out, in my view, how to create a better business climate in the United States. I'm sure that's what Schumer and Hatch are talking about, and in California. I think in many ways, in a targeted way. I think this proposal has some real merit. The question is, in the context of the federal deficit, because that's what, of course, we're talking about here, is this the priority that you would put in all the different stimulus and all the different things that you can theoretically spend money on as the government? Where does this fall on the priority list? There is not an unlimited and open pocketbook here. So if you look at all the other things, is this something that you would invest in because you think it would create the most amount of jobs? Remember, it is not the job of government to create jobs. What the government needs to do is create the conditions for small businesses to grow and thrive. So that is the screen by which the criteria I would look at all these different proposals and say, how are we doing the very best job we can to create the conditions for small businesses to grow and thrive, as opposed to give near-term incentives that might not be sustainable.
Well, not to be outdone by two of our fine senators, President Obama has a plan. What do you think of the President's proposal to give companies a $5,000 tax credit for each new worker that they hire in 2010? Also, companies that increase wages and/or hours worked for current workers would be reimbursed for any extra Social Security payroll taxes.
Well, the first thing I would say is I am delighted that President Obama has turned his attention to jobs. This is the #1 issue facing the state of California, and I am delighted that he has pivoted to jobs in such a meaningful way. So good for him for focusing on this. Now the question is, what is the very best thing the federal government can do, as I said, to create the conditions? I think this proposal has merit, it should be looked at, but in the context of everything else that the government can do, is this the most beneficial thing for small businesses? And my view is, where I would start with streamlining regulation, I would start with targeted tax relief that actually will spur employment and that we can afford in a systematic way.
We're finally going to get to another topic here, which is our budget. Governor Schwarzenegger is asking the Obama administration for $6.9 billion. The governor says is owed to California. Feds disagree with this amount. In fact, even California Senators Boxer and Feinstein, as well as our Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, also disagree. And they claim that stimulus funds under the Recovery Act are and will be provided to California to help the state's financial mess. Can you comment, please?
I can. So I think it's true that California is owed money by the federal government. For example, the illegal immigrant population in our prisons is enormously expensive. So we are owed money by the federal government, and I hope that the federal government will contribute to the budget deficit. I will tell you that realistically, I'm not sure that it's going to happen on anywhere near the magnitude that Governor Schwarzenegger would like. He is not the first governor to try to retrieve monies from the federal government. So my view is we have to take responsibility for putting our own fiscal house in order. We can't hope that the federal government will bail us out. So let's be really thoughtful about it. Let's tackle the issues that are right in front of us. Let's utilize technology. You know, everyone in this audience has had technology impact their lives. The companies you work for. You know, how many of you have to say, listen, next year we have to do the same amount for 10% less cost, or we got to do 10% more for the same cost. That is not a discipline that exists in Sacramento. And we have got to fundamentally change the way we think about this. And you would be surprised, I think, to learn of the state of the IT infrastructure that powers the state of California. For the most technologically advanced state in the country, the home of Silicon Valley that has changed everything, the home of the Bay Area, that has allowed us to do things we never dreamed were possible because of technology, we haven't exported that incredible talent to Sacramento. And one of the things that I think we need to think about, you know, people ask me every single day, how will you get anything done? They ask it a little bit more politely than that, but what they mean is, this all sounds great, Nick. I love jobs, I love spending, I love fixing education, but how will you actually get anything done? So it turns out that the governor of California really has 4 levers that you can pull. First is the appointments process. The governor of California makes 3,000 appointments to his or her administration. And the top 300 of which are incredibly important because they're your agency heads, your department heads, and the gubernatorial nominations to the 395 boards and commissions that we have in California. By the way, as an aside, we don't need 395 boards and commissions. But those 300 people are essential. I did not run eBay by myself. I'm not running this campaign by myself. I will not govern California by myself. Those 300 people are absolutely essential. They need to be the right people in the right job on the same agenda as the governor. I will interview every one of those individuals. And I think of those 300, a third need to come from the private sector. Because it's hard to ask the civil service to reinvent themselves from the inside out. And the reason I bring this up is coming back to technology. I think we're going to have a healthy dose from the private sector to redo the entire technology infrastructure that runs the state. The second point I would make in terms of how you get things done is the governor has to work with the legislature. It's true, but the legislature has to work with the governor because the governor has line item veto in California. And I think we need to focus the legislature on the existing crisis. What has happened in California is the legislature in many ways